I hope you all have seen the first video where we in detail discussed a framework, a thinking process for attempting the quotation based questions. Now let's go ahead. Today in this second video, let's discuss how to answer the applied ethics questions. This has been in abundance in 2024 paper. This has been the surprising element of 2024 paper. And for that reason, this has been the challenging, or you can say tone setting questions of 2024 paper. Let's develop an approach how to answer these questions. So these are the 5 questions we have been speaking about. Question on artificial intelligence, question on war, armed weapons trade, question on global warming, question on Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, question related to gender and issues faced by women at workplace. So these are like all applied ethics questions, and all these are taken from recent developments. Now coming to ethics, again this paper, as I told before also, like it's not about how much you know about Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita or how much you know about artificial intelligence that is going to be judged. It's more than how much you know about artificial intelligence. Can you apply the ethical knowledge you got to these particular questions? Can you think in terms of values? Can you think in terms of different ethical dimensions? I know I'm a little bit confusing you. Ethical dimensions, ethical theories, ethical values. What exactly are these? We need a basic understanding of what, when we speak ethical dimensions, ethical aspects, what we actually mean. We actually mean these 4 components. Whenever we speak ethical values, or you can say you have to ethically consider something, what does it mean? It means you have to try to apply different ethical frameworks or ethical theories into it. And what are the different theories we have? We have virtue ethics. These are like the first 5 most fundamental theories you should have a very good awareness. From virtue ethics, which speaks about character. From deontology, which speak about will or intention. Utilitarianism, which speak about consequences. Justice, which speaks about, you can say, pleasure, pain. You can speak about distributive justice. Rights of the people, which rights based approach you can say. So these are the 5 dimensions. When we have to do an ethical dimensions of a particular act, what we have to think is what is take on character of the individual, what is the intention behind this act, what are the consequences of this act, is this act just? These are the 5 dimensions. These are the 5 ethical dimensions. Wherever you have to do ethical considerations, ethical analysis, these are the 5 dimensions you should think on. Now, when writing answers, you can elaborate on this. You can elaborate virtue ethics into Greek ethics. You can bring in some concept of Socrates or Aristotle, like golden mean concept. You can bring Plato's alagogy of cave concept. You can bring in Buddha's Madhyam Marg approach. You can again divide deontology into different heads, like considering humans an end in itself, considering will or intention. Utilitarianism, again you can divide into act-based utilitarianism, rule-based utilitarianism. Similarly, justice, a lot of justice. You will see in this question how differentiated you can have perspective of justice. So you can have nuances for these theories. This is not an end in itself. But these are the 5 essential dimensions you should not miss. Similarly, human values. You should think of different values. Many of these questions we have seen shown in the last slide looks like a GS2 question. Especially the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita question. It can very aptly asked in GS2 also. Or you can say the global warming question or artificial intelligence question. It can be asked in GS3. Now, when these topics are being asked in ethics, what difference are you going to create? If you have an answer for this, if you have a thought process for this, you're going to score good marks. You're going to score better marks than your competitors. And how to bring these elements? That is simply think about different values. If we speak about artificial intelligence, think of different values artificial intelligence is upholding. Think of respect, think of honesty, integrity, think of empathy, compassion, personal growth, which is essential for an individual. Think of community thinking, think of spirituality. So these are all different human values. Dignity. Similarly, when we have a majority of our question is related to public services. Public service. What exactly is public service? I have seen students farming examples from public service. Don't be stupid. You're getting some very good examples, obviously good to cram it. But that's not the case. We are dumping examples for every topic. That is not the demand of these questions. For questions on public service, for questions on civil services, learn different dimensions of public service. Public service includes education, healthcare, environmental, essential services like PDS, like policing, judiciary, administration, infrastructure. Whatever government do, that all comes under public services. When you have a question, you have keep an open mind for this. Think in terms of values and connect with all these dimensions. Whatever government do, connect with this. Then you have public service values. We have a syllabus given public service values, and the most important public service values, that is people first. Your ultimate accountability is towards the people. Whatever is the decision you are substantiating, whether it is a whistleblowing, whether it is speaking up against your senior, whatever, in case studies, in section A, if a public service question is the people first attitude should be one of the dimension in your answer. You cannot afford to not write about people first attitude. It is even integrity or accountability, objectivity, non-partisanship, empathy, compassion, all this comes after people first. People first attitude, that is the base of all public service values, and this should be reflected in your answers. And not just this, you should have some dimensions related to these public service values. So two are major takeaways from discussions. You should have a framework of theories. You should have a framework of what exactly is public services. Then to give an ethical touch to the answers for applied ethics question, you have to think in terms of values. That's it. Now let's go into discussion of the questions. How you can apply our no-nonsense approach to applied ethics based questions or the challenging questions of 2024. Let's get started. The first question, quite a very easy question. The application of artificial intelligence as a dependable source of input for administrative rational decision making is a debatable issue. We have a statement. Critically examine is the keyword here. The statement from ethical point of view. And what is ethical point of view? That is the theories we have discussed, the values we have discussed. Think in terms of theories, think in terms of values. You will get many criticisms. And what you have to write: intro, body, conclusion. What I look for in intro: things to keep. Don't overwrite intro. 2 to 3 line is optimum. If your intro is substantiating one part of your answer, if your intro is substantiating the statement given in the question, then go for an extended intro. Otherwise, 2 to 3 lines is enough. And intro, what exactly is being looked is your introduction relevant? Whatever you have written, is that relevant to the question? If it is fairly relevant in this question, if you simply defined artificial intelligence, that suffices to be a decent introduction. But define it correctly. What is artificial intelligence? Don't say artificial intelligence is, say, big data analysis, lot of data analyzed, that is artificial intelligence. No. Systems or machines, when they are working as human brains, when they are taking decisions on its own without pre-programming, that is what artificial intelligence is. So conceptually, don't make any mistake. Otherwise, whatever you write relevant to the question, that is a fine introduction. If you can remember any quotation rates to artificial intelligence said by Elon Musk or say Stephen Hawking or Bill Gates, or we have listed a recent statement by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud. So if you can remember any of these statements, you can use that in the introduction as well. That can give a little bit more specific classic touch to the introduction. Otherwise, if you are not able to remember, just focus on writing something relevant. That can be definition, that can be simply reinterpreting the quotation, that can be writing factors behind some factors, some aspects that is given in the quotation. Now in the body, again, same as we did for the particular question, that is quotation based questions. Divide the body into two parts at least, then your work is half done. Here critically examine is the question. Wherever I get these quotation words, keywords like critically examine or analyze, critically analyze, what will be I'm looking at? I'm looking at a pros and cons analysis, and with a fairly equal number of points, that is 5 point here and 5 point here. Now pros and cons analysis, even if a question is on discuss, I have still scope to go for pros and cons analysis. Discuss is something a very different keyword. You sometimes when you got discuss, you write only about one aspect of it, depend on certain topics. But in certain topics, you can give a pros and cons analysis. But even in pros and cons analysis of a discuss question, it should be biased towards either of the side. In most cases, your cons may be at least one paragraph in the end, just to show there is an extra dimension to this. Your most of the answer should be other aspects of it. But when it is analytical keyword, go for fairly equal divisions. You can have one points either here and there, that's not a matter. In conclusion, you can take your stance. In conclusion, you can even take a balance. If you are taking a balanced stand, to make sure you are not making a mistake of not exactly clearing your stance. You can either say it's very good, you can either say it's not very good, we should be more cautious, or you can say it should be applied in a balanced way. That means there should be caution, but it should be promoted. But your stance should be very clear in the conclusion. Or you can give a futuristic vision, or you can relate with a recent development, like we have this EU AI Regulation Act. India also needs such an act for AI regulation. A regulation is important for stopping the misuse as well as for promoting this industry growth in India. The importance of AI regulation you can speak about. So these are all different aspects of conclusion you can bring into the paper. Again, our most focus area should be body, and body should be divided into two parts in this question because it is a critically examined question. That is advantages of using AI in this particular area, that is administrative rational decision making, and you can say limitations of using AI in this particular area, that is administrative rational decision making. Now administrative rational decision making, that means simply public service. In public service means you can think of anything. You can think of resource management, budgeting, you can think of police, you can think of revenue, you can think of education, healthcare, judiciary. All these are applications of rational decision making in public sector. And find your how bringing in AI can make a difference. To give an ethical touch to it, what values are AI upholding, what values are AI not upholding. Bring 5 points into each of these, your work is done. Let's see how it is being done. There is a statement by Chief Justice of India Chandrachud where he speaks a lot about this significance, or you can say potential of AI in more, you can say automating this routine decisions in judiciary. On the other hand, he also spoke about importance of human touch in core decisions. So you can give his statement as a very classic introduction to these questions. Second, we have already discussed the two parts, that will be advantages of AI in administrative ethical decision making and challenges or limitations. In advantages, you can think of efficiency. Think of some examples, like we have AI camera installed in Kerala and some other states. AI camera, instead of the traffic policeman checking there for whether you are wearing helmet or whether you are wearing seat belt, we have installed AI cameras, which are high resolution cameras and which clicks photos and process it and clearly understand whether you are wearing helmet or whether you are wearing a cap or whether you are putting seat belt or not. So all this, your speed, your other XYZ data will be automatically collected and these challan will be sent to your home. So what is the benefits of this system? Again, the best is efficiency, because if a policeman is standing, you can just cheat him and take the vehicle in between and just rush out. But if it is a camera, it's very difficult to cheat that. if it has improved accuracy. A policeman can miss some of the persons. A policeman, if some of his relative came, he can just wave off. Even some politicians came, he can wave off. But that is not easily doable if there is a camera. We have objective evidence of doing something that is against the law, and there should be some action taken against it. Consistency. A policeman, you cannot employ a policeman 24 hours. It's very difficult to put a policeman at every corners 24 hours. But a camera, you can just install and forget it. It will be continuously working around the clock, 24 into service. Bias reduction. That means you are not favoring certain groups, certain political parties. Your decision will be more on the basis of facts and figures. 24 into 7 availability. Now, this is for a camera I speak. You can give different examples like chatbots. We already seen AI chatbots in Swiggy, in Zomato, in Flipkart, these kind of apps. This can have huge potential in government sector. A lot of routine questions that is being asked can be addressed by these chatbots, which can, again, their services can be higher available for, like, say 24 into 7. You can have better hiring process through AI. If an evaluator is checking the copy, there is always a chance for, like we say now, if samosa is not having higher salt, then your half mark is gone. So these kind of human errors, scope for human errors can be reduced. In tax filing, we have something like a Project Insight. What is Project Insight? Which is something of income tax department, which collects information from different social media platforms and find those who are evading the taxes. So AI can improvise these systems. Traffic management we already discussed. Budget allocation optimization. AI has huge potential. So all these, and AI is such an area. If I say AI is an application in PDS or whatever, it is hardly very difficult to deny or say something like AI doesn't have any application in this particular sector. So examples, there is no dearth of examples. You need to divide the answer question correctly and think on terms of values. Ethical challenges in AI, algorithmic bias, which we usually hear, like how AI works. AI works based on data. Where this data is taken from the society. In US, when the data is fed to the AI, when they make the decisions, if it is a black person, they usually tag him with criminality. Why this is happening? Because the data fed to the from the US citizen, that data itself has biases. If it is in US, it is a racial bias, that is algorithmic bias. If it is India, we have regional bias, we have caste based bias, we have gender bias. So there is a chance that the differences, the biases that is existing within the society, that can get exaggerated in AI functioning. So there is issue, there is lack of transparency, there is a concept of black box, AI black box, that is nobody exactly know what is happening inside the this particular thing, this AI. It doesn't know whether you ask something about Russia and about USA. Most probably you will get answers that is on a positive tone for USA, on a negative tone for Russia. There are inherent biases within the system. What kind of data is fed to the system? There is biases in it. This is not a foolproof technology. So we have limitations with this AI. We have accountability issues, we have privacy concerns, accountability, we have hate speech. If it is somebody has asked ChatGPT to write an hate speech and it has written and he has published it. Now, whom against we should take the case? Is it against a person who asked the question or the algorithm which written the AI? Speech. Again, job displacement, that is a, you can say, inherent challenge of this AI and automation in manufacturing, how it leads to increasing the suffering of the people. So these are different challenges. This is a very small limited amount of challenges. You can think more, you can connect it with different values, you can connect it with here with different aspects, like AI can automate a lot of our routine tasks. It gives us more time to spend in leisure. It gives us more time to pursue our passions. These are all potential of AI to humanity. You can connect it with societies. It can increase productivity. It can help India to reach our goal of becoming X trillion economy in 2050. So all these different dimensions you can think of. Again, conclusion, you can write it. EU already have this AI Regulation Act, and we also need to work towards that area. Go through the second question. Yeah. Here also we have a statement. It's not enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it. And it is not enough to believe in it. One must act upon it. Quite a very straightforward statement. In present context, the major weapon industries of developed nations are adversely influencing continuation of number of wars for their own interest all around the world. So weapon trade, weapon market bias that is towards the developed nations that is being highlighted. What are the ethical considerations? Again, ethical considerations. Where ethical consideration is, you can think of different ethical theories, different ethical values, and generate your points. What ethical considerations of powerful nations in today's international arena to stop continuation of ongoing conflicts? Very, very long question. But again, if you have a particular thinking, it's become very cakewalk question. Again, intro. What I'm going to write in intro, we have two different statements. One is speaking about importance of action. So you can give some statement related to importance of action. Simply rhetoric is not going to help. You need to take credible actions to find results. Second, you can speak about developed countries, arms trade, and their interest in conflicts. You can give some examples. Ukraine is supplied with unlimited supply of arms and ammunition by US and their other West partners. So you can write some examples and point out how Western countries are invested in other countries. So this will be my introduction. It can be a little bit lengthy introduction because in introduction we are substantiating the statements that is given in the question, and we have two different questions. So it should be a little bit an extended introduction, not a 2 to 3 line introduction. Now coming to the body, what I'm going to write. It is asking ethical consideration of powerful nations. The easiest way to do is, what are the powerful nations? Who are all the powerful nations? It is US, it is in current context Russia, it is in current context China, and since we are also writing the question from India, we are including India. It is in the current context India also. So these we list for nations. You can include, if you want to include one other nations, you can increase this, add to this list. Now, what are the consideration of US? Again, what is the consideration of US in Ukraine? What is the consideration of US in Israel? What is the consideration of US in Indo-Pacific? What you can see, what is Russia's issues in Ukraine? What is China's issues in South China Sea, in Indo-Pacific? What is China's issues along borders with India in Himalayas? What is India's stance on these matters? Give at least 2 points on each of these, you will get your answer ready. And 2-point generation, that is not very difficult task. It's quite easily doable. Yeah. Then conclusion, last part of the answer, that will be conclusion. And what you're going to write in the conclusion, you can write importance of taking action. You can write a quote, or you can write importance of action in this particular context to bring peace in the country. What United Nations, other UN organizations can do in this particular issue. All these different elements you can bring into your answer in the conclusion. Let's see what has been written. So weapon trade is a lifeline of US economy. From 2017 to 21, US have traded weapons to 100 nations, over 100 nations. This is a very huge number. More than 50% of the countries US is trading arms with. These numbers are quite very relevant, very difficult to remember, but at least this 100 you can remember, you can use that. Even if you are not remembering these numbers, you can use a lot of these examples, like West supporting Ukraine, US siding with Israel, US is vetoing different resolutions in UN, US, Saudi Arabia's involvement in Yemen, pseudo power game in Syria where US is siding with this, government of Syria whereas Russia and other partners are siding with this rebel government, militarization that is happening in Indo-Pacific. Quad is a replementer, you can say this outcome of this. AUKUS is a direct outcome of this. So these are different aspects of how a lot of how interest of Western nations of which is coming from arms trade and this industry is influencing war or fueling wars in other part of the country. Now, body, what are the ethical considerations? What is US and EU upholding? That is right to self-defense, whether it is for Israel, whether it is for Ukraine. Self-defense is uncompromisable concept. Even NATO is based on this. International law and norms, law-based global order, which India also speaks about. Just peace, the concept of just peace. Peace can be brought from different cost. What can be the cost of peace? Cost of peace, is it violence? Cost of peace, is it non-action, passivity? What should be the cost of peace? And US believes in cost of peace should be justice, and for that justice we are leading the war. Why US is bombing different areas in Afghanistan? Why US led the war against Afghanistan? Because for justice against the terrorist organization. What they actually did or what are the outcomes of this, I'm not going to discuss, but these are the ethical consideration before US. Humanitarian crisis, migrant crisis, Ukraine, from Middle East, Russia, what are the concerns, security concerns, how to address security concerns, unaddressed security concerns, non-effectiveness of diplomatic channels, including the UN platforms, respect for sovereignty and rights of people. These are the consideration of Russia. China, territorial integrity, uncompromisable aspect, one China principle. Even today there has been some claims against Taiwan when India has offered Taiwan to open its office in Mumbai or so. So that has been leading to again conflict between India and China. Rule-based global order. India, when we speak, India is playing a role of negotiator. So multipolar global order, moral politics, these are ideas which India, ethical considerations before India. Interest of the people, that is obviously uncompromisable value for any country. Conclusion, you can write a statement by Prime Minister Narendra Modi like this. For the future of humanity, we must move beyond conflict, embrace our shared strengths and work together to build a more peaceful, prosperous and sustainable world for all of us. Hope you got a fair idea. Let's discuss the third question. Again, quite similar question on similar lines, a practical question. But if you have a clear conscience, if you have a clear approach, you can do this easily. Let's see. Global warming and climate change are the outcomes of human greed. In the name of development, indicating the direction in which extinction of organisms, including human beings, is heading towards loss of life on Earth. How do you put an end to this to protect life and bring equilibrium between society and environment? So there are, one statement is given. Statement is speaking about what values are resulting in global warming and climate change. What values? Human greed. It is speaking about human greed. So give some substantiating element to the statement. Give some examples to the statement. And there is no dearth of examples. You can use the examples from the environment. Secondly, the main part of the answer, that is how you are going to put an answer to this, how you are going to put an end to this. So intro, you are substantiating the statement. In body, what you're doing in body, you are how you are going to put an end to this. So how you means who all are. You means it is an individual. How you as an individual can do a difference to this, how governments can do a difference to this, how private sector can do a difference to this. What I have did is, like in the last question, we have taken the powerful countries. Here I have taken the you and thought who can be the you and took 2-3 most powerful persons or the 2-3 more most powerful stakeholders. Even if I get 2 stakeholders out, my work is easy. I can just develop 4-5 points behind it. If I get 3 or 4 stakeholders, you can include more stakeholders. These are just on a, you can say, like for understanding, I have taken these stakeholders because they are easy to see and very huge. They play a huge role. So these 3 stakeholders, if at least 2-3 points you can develop, you can get 8+ points. Conclusion, you can write something of relevance. You can write something of a warning, code red. All these different types of conclusion you can do, or you can write some quotation like we did in the last question. So this is the core part of this answer. How you interpret you into different parts, and at least 3 parts you divide, your work is done. And it is when you're reading the question itself, this should strike in your mind. And how it happens through continuous practice. So go and practice different approaches for different questions. So again, introduction, how global warming, climate change are outcomes of human greed, Amazon forest, resource exploitation, pollution. India is currently also stubble burning is happening in the neighboring Delhi areas. Continuing use of fossil fuels, like US is one of the major producer of fossil fuels, petroleum especially, commercialization, new culture of consumerism, sixth mass extinction, all these are factors in support of this particular statement. And I don't have to present 6-7 ideas, I just need 2-3 of these, and remembering 2-3 of these is not a big deal. That is my introduction. Body, how to put an end to this, that means how to put a balance. As an individual, what we can do, step away from consumerism. How many of you seen an IIT Bombay professor wearing a socks with a holes and sitting in a luxury hotel? Now, when asked why you are wearing this, you already have a big salary, and why you are wearing the socks with the holes? His response was quite, you can say, iconic. He said that I can afford a socks, but the nature cannot afford a socks. This is the mentality we need to adopt in our lives. It only comes from individuals, and as an individual we all have a role, and you should accept that you have a role to play. It comes from moderation, reducing the wastage. It comes from respecting the nature. Reuse culture, build you reuse culture in your dress, in your clothing, in the books you use, in other XYZ products. Use public transport system. You cannot use it daily, at least use for few days, for 2 days a week, use public transport system. Can you take these small actions? That is where the balance comes. I'll accept personal responsibility, contentment with less. Again, we are thinking about the values. What values can counter global warming and climate change? If you have this attitude of collecting more and more, there is no end to this more. It can go to any extent. So you should learn the art of being content. Government level, we need long-term thinking. We need net zero targets to be implemented. Net zero targets, India's target is 2070. We cannot afford to wait till 2070 to have a check of this. We need 2-year, 3-year targets. We need the actionable plans for the long-term vision. We need governments to act with this long-term vision. It's not that we set a target and we forget it. Intergenerational equity, historical responsibility of climate change. The 100 billion transfers that was offered for developing countries, which hasn't happened. So this all justice elements should be brought into picture. Environmental stewardship. The life initiative of India, it's a very classic initiative. We can write that. Social justice, transparency. Similarly, private sector, they can do ethical business practices, no plastic policy, sustainable practices, like you can have a fund of funds for eco-friendly practices. You can not have eco-washing or green-washing. Now, classic, you can come out with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi: the earth, the air, the land, the water are not, we are not inheritance from our forefathers, but a loan from our children. Or you can write that quote also: there is enough for everyone's need, but there is not enough for everyone's greed. This should be the principle that should be leading us, considering that we are going into, we already crossed the tipping points of climate change and global warming. Do the 5th question, 5B question, 4th question of the day it will be. So this is a very tough question. So a lot of aspirants have find this question quite difficult. Again, I'm saying this question is difficult because it's a GS2 topic and you are normally not prepared coming to exam preparing this topic. That's why it is difficult. But there are enough support system given in this question. So if you have a very simple approach to the answer question, you can answer this question decently in the exam hall. Let's see how it can be done. The soul of new law, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, is justice, equality, impartiality based on Indian culture and ethos. Discuss this in light of major shift from doctrine of punishment to justice in present judicial system. Again, what you need to incorporate. What you need to know, what is Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, Indian criminal law that has been before we have this IPC, now it has been replaced to Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. What is Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita? We know. What are some of the controversial aspects? I know, like when juvenile justice, especially the road crimes, has been increasing, there has been a lot of memes, there has been a lot of stringent criticism against Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. We will just write them some, say, social service, or make them do some other XYZ things like writing an apology and sending back home. Is this what our law is envisaging? There was very strong emotional responses. At least something that is happening in the news, you should be well aware of. That much awareness if you have. Then gender justice, there is a lot many articles. Arjikar incident in Kolkata, there has been a lot of news after that particular incident. The news has been coming up, so you can use those to your advantage in this. And it is not just about having knowing a lot of about Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita that is expected out of you. Divide this question under different heads. That is the most important thing. And if you can divide the question under different heads, you can easily answer this question. See how it is being done. Introduction, you just write something. What exactly is Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita? Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita is nothing but a criminal code of India that replaced Indian Penal Code on July 1, 2024. Now, we have already given different elements: justice, equality, impartiality from Indian culture and Vedas. Discuss is our keyword. So you can write, discuss means you can write different aspects, like how justice oriented approach is bringing in the concept of doctrine of punishment to justice, how justice is being implemented by justice oriented approach, like restorative justice. There is compensation for all kind of victims. Specifically for acid attack victims, there is provision for mandatory payment of medical expenses. For reformative justice, there is community service, training and counseling for prisoners. So from a doctrine of deterrence, we are moving towards doctrine of reformative justice, doctrine of restorative justice. These all elements in Indian ethos are being reflected in Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. How equality and inclusivity is becoming a part of this. You can speak about gender justice, intercourse on false promise marriage, which is a very much concern of Indian society. That is being included a specific section under this act. Legal recognition and protection offered to LGBTQ people. Cultural rights protection. Tribal justice is given focus on this Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. How impartiality and fairness. Mandatory recording of search and seizure operations. Time-bound trial provisions. So even if you don't remember exactly what is the number of days, that is not required. You have to bring in how Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita can be related to impartiality and fairness. Indian ethos, if you can relate Indian ethos here, that's great. If you cannot relate Indian ethos, give separate heading. Focus on duty, focus on dharma, people-centric approach, people-centric lok adalats, decriminalization of minor offenses. Focus on fines, that is element of reformative justice. So all these are different elements of Indian ethos which we can directly see in Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. Again, you can give, if you still find you are not getting enough points for this, at least find 1-2 points for justice, for equality, for impartiality, for Indian ethos. There is enough number of points. Still, if you are not getting enough points, you can, the discuss is the keyword here. You can include a counter perspective. They can include the challenges for implementing all of these. But it should not be very extensive. It should be very limited and focused. It can present it in the diagrammatic format. That's excellent. Conclusion: this is a significant steps in evolution of Indian criminal justice system. But its implementation should be cautious. Implementation should be systematic. Then only the vision and visage become reality. Otherwise, there is scope for larger confusion and more delays and more stagnation. So even though the question is prima facie a very difficult question, but if you have a systematic approach to the question, if you know how to divide the question correctly, if you don't make any mistake in dividing the question correctly, there is much higher chances you are going to write a better answer. So it's not just about learning content. It's not just about learning everything about Bharatiya nation. Obviously, you need certain knowledge. Obviously, you need to know about certain debates that is happening in the society. Going ahead, this is the last question of discussion for the day. Again, in Indian culture and value system. Again, there is a lot of mention of Indian culture, you can see throughout the question paper. So you need to prepare what are the different aspects from a ethical perspective, what is different aspects of Indian culture. This is again a learning for next year. In Indian culture and value system, an equal opportunity has been provided irrespective of gender identity. The number of women in public services has been steadily increasing over the years. So we have an extensive statement which speaks about one is Indian culture and women gender equality. Second statement speak about increasing women participation in public service. Examine, so examine is the keyword here, the gender specific challenges faced by female public servants. Again, examine, and the question, if I look, I simply has to list what are the gender specific issues faced by women. Suggest I can even look for factors. What are the issues? What are the factors? This will be my first body heading. Second body heading will be measures to be taken. These two will be my body dimensions. My conclusion will be more like a way forward like conclusion. My introduction will be Indian culture and gender equality. At least 1-2 example I can use, great. Public service and women. At least I can put one data, that's great. That will give a perfect introduction. Again, I will write a little bit extended introduction, not 2-3 lines, because we have a statement and our introduction is substantiating the particular statement. And body we have already divided, that means factors or what are exactly the issues faced by women in this work sector and what measures can be done to correct this. Conclusion. So this will be my overall approach. Now Indian culture is too much. It is music, it is cinema, it is language, it is heritage, it is religion, it is everything. Rigveda, Gargi and Maitreyi, matrilinear inherited systems in Kerala, Nair society, Kasis of Meghalaya, Bhakti movement, we have Mirabai, we have Akama Devi. So these are elements of women representation in Indian culture. Increasing number of women. In 1970s, women entering IAS was 10%. Now it is 34% in 2023. I know most of you don't remember this data. At least give women labor force participation data. It has also been increasing. Currently it is at 37. It was 22 or something in 2017 and it's increased to 37%, which is a substantial increment of 15% in last 4-5 years. So you can use this data from economy, from other subjects. You can use some examples from history, culture, and substantiate your introduction. We don't need too much like this. We need only 2-3, and that much you can remember easily. Gender specific challenges, sexual harassment. We have RG Kar case, that is like throughout newspaper there has been issues related to this. Double burden, that means a woman has to work at the office and come back and do the work at home. There is always a biased burden of domestic work on women, even though the families are getting more symmetrical. We speak about symmetrical division of labor within the families, but still as a society, if you look at the domestic labor division, then that is hugely biased on women. Glass ceiling, that is career due to career break, due to opportunity gap, due to capacity gap. Glass cliff, that was found during pandemic. What is glass cliff? Glass cliff is a concept where women, when the pandemic, when there is more uncertainties in the market, when there is more high tendencies that the market can fail, the company can fail. So what the management do? Management promote women into these leadership positions, not to promote them or empower the women participation, but to, if the company fails, if the decision fails, the woman can be victimized. So with that intention, woman has been promoted to leadership position in many companies during pandemic. Then that what is called as glass cliff. Stereotyping, they have been perceived as incapable. Patriarchal elements is extended to the workplace also. Profiling, that means sexualizing at the workplace. Women are like taken into work for specific kind of jobs like air hostess, and they are trained to sexualize their gender in nursing industry. So there have been work profiling that is happening in the industry. Care industry, intersectional challenges that is coming out of caste, gender aspect is being clubbed with caste issues, with other issues, regional issues, with age issues, all these other barriers are putting intersectionality challenges before women. So these are different challenges being faced, and how to solve this. Organizational culture, support system, gender sensitive leadership, gender neutral recruitment, gender neutral evaluation frameworks, all these are required. What we need is we need to systems to identify where are gender insensitivities, gender issues coming up, and we need these systems to identify this and take an actions. So we need to speak of values, we need to speak of not just about legal solution but value based solutions. Conclusion, you can write always in gender questions, you can write about article 15 which speaks about equality, and equality in its ambit also covers the gender equality. So that has been a discussion of the 5 most difficult questions of 2024 ethics paper. And what one common thread of all these questions, one non-compromisable mistake you should do is in understanding the demand of the question. Correctly understand the demand of the question. There is no excuse, no compromise for this. Now, once you did this, next our responsibility is to divide the body part into at least 2 different headings. If you can divide into more different parts, it becomes very easy to generate points, and 2 points to think of 2 examples, 2 arguments in one heading. It's not at all a difficult task. We have done this for most classic difficult questions. The other easy question, our work become much more easier. If you can do this for these questions, you can do this same for other questions also. The next step, intro, conclusion. Intro, I only want one thing, that is keep it relevant. Nothing comes to your mind, define the basic components. Otherwise, keep it relevant and simple. Conclusion, you can use quotations, you can use way forward, you can use futuristic vision, you can use constitutional articles, you can use personalities, role models. There are different types of conclusions we have discussed, but keep in mind that keep it 2 to 3 lines, not more than that. Majority of your points should be on body, and try to bring out 8, 9, 10 points plus more than that in body, and that will fetch you more marks. So this is the whole structure of discussion of this, and bring this clarity of how to approach whatever is the question, easy, tough, difficult, medium, whatever is the type of question. Try to build this kind of a thinking process. For that, like I know, like writing is a very difficult task. At least when you're reading some subject, take PYQs from these. Even if you're not able to write it completely, write half part of it. Write, simply divide it into different heads. Write a thinking process for this particular question. Like we have divided into different powerful nations. We have divided into different stakeholders in one question. We have divided across different other elements. Similarly, think of what are the different elements I can divide this question into. What are the different values I can associate with this? What are the different theories I can associate with it? Make a picture, and even if you are not writing the full answer, do this exercise for n number of PYQs. That builds your strategy, but that builds your approach. Content building, that happens over a period of time, happens by continuous reading, happens by continuously writing answer, reading value addition materials. But how to approach a question, what to think in a question, how to divide a question, these are the elements where you should focus on, and you should not make any mistake. On that note, we will wind up the session. I hope you got the best of this. All the best.